Cook for Kitplanes. Welcome to our little chat. I'm here with Mark Schaible of Sonex Aircraft. We're going to get caught up with Mark, not only on what Sonex has been working on, but especially on the high wing, which is a very exciting project for the company. Mark, thanks for joining me. I appreciate your time.
Of course, thanks for having me, Mark. Always happy to chat.
So you guys just put out a little news release updating us on the high wing progress. We're going to get into that in just a moment, but take us back in time just a little bit. You guys have introduced the high wing a few years ago now, I think in August, and progress has been going along. But bring us up to speed not only on sort of where the progress has taken you, but what the concept was behind it originally.
Yeah, I mean, the concept goes way back, actually, to, I'd say 2010 timeframe, maybe even before, in a conversation with Jeremy Monette. And as I've said on webinars and things at the time, I was like, "Oh, gross! We don't do high wings." But the more I thought about it, and the more we talked about it, it was kind of the idea of being a metallized tailwind. And, that's pretty appropriate for us being here on Whitman Field and with so much lineage between some elements of our design, so the Sonex design, to the tailwind, the airfoil, fuselage shape and flat bottom and all that kind of stuff, and many more things. So the more we talked about it and thought about it, the more that the concept made sense. We announced it. Gosh, I don't even know what year now. It was the same year that the RV-15 was announced. I remember we actually jumped to announce it because I had been working numbers on it for a long time prior to that. And the Vans announcement, as you recall, was pretty vague about what the RV-15 was going to be. And I'm like, wait a minute. I've been working on this thing, and we know what it's going to be, or at least we thought we did. And here it is. And so we kind of announced the concept of it, had some 3D drawings and things of that nature. I continue to work on it, but like any R&D project, it's just it gets the time that you have available, and of course, you make extra time, on your own time. But with everything, serving customers, existing customers, and then we had the transition in the business when I took over from John, and 1 week wonder, of course, was a major interruption in terms of all prep work that we had to do and everything. So, we had mentioned before, it seems like it's on the front burner now. It was never really on the back burner. It just, it takes time. And, we're also dealing with, finishing the development of the two-seat jet as well. And that's not on the back burner either. But it just, we spin the plates, we make progress where we can make progress, when we can make progress. And so, yeah, with this last Friday's update is where we're at today.
But I think it's important that you're showing metal progress in with the airplane now. I'm curious to know what sort of changed as you go along. And clearly, you've had enough time to look at the design drawings and things. And has there been much that you've changed or looked at and went, well, we can do that a little differently. Now that we've sort of spent some time with it, we might do this differently. How has it changed?
Well, yeah, I mean, it like any project, it gets a life of its own, and yeah, changes happen over the development. I would say probably the biggest change was that from the original concept, we always knew we wanted it to be just a little bit more, in the sense of useful load. I mean, that's really what we wanted to offer with this airplane, is something that is a bit more competitive on the useful load side, knowing that builders are not real good at keeping their airplanes light. Um,
They're terrible at it. Just say it. They're terrible at it. But I want this, this, and this, and next thing you know, you've added 30 pounds to the airplane.
exactly. And as much as we can say, the Sonex is a great airplane if you, well, in general it is, of course, but, in terms of useful load capability, it turns out to be a very usable airplane with utility if you're disciplined about keeping it light. And we have webinars on the subject and everything going back years. It's just that temptation is really hard to resist. And, we just wanted to do something a little bit more with this airplane. And, we have the freedom to do that because it's a high wing and we've always sold low wing. So it's not like it directly competes with the Sonics. Although I think, there are probably some builders trying to decide if they're going to, build one of our existing models or if they're going to wait for the high wing. But in general, people either want a high wing or a low wing. At least that's the sort of the common wisdom in the industry, right? So as far as changes go, I think the biggest thing was Mosaic, and I really resisted making changes to Mosaic, versus a pre-Mosaic specification. But the more time has gone by, the more real the Mosaic changes are becoming in terms of the NPRM coming out, the comments being sent back with no real showstoppers, some of the unofficial things that we've heard. The FAA were actually able to talk about it after the comment period because of an opening. There was an opening opportunity. So they were actually not ex parte for a certain period of time after the comment period closed. So that was around the time of EAA's Winter Summit with the FAA. So the EAA was able to kind of glean from the FAA that the comments were held pretty favorably. It sounds like, at least on an unofficial level. So all of that sort of gave me the confidence to say, what is this airplane really going to weigh empty? That was a big driver. I think that like you always do when you start a new design, you set a weight goal for it, and then you find out how wrong you were as you progress. And that's just the way that the process goes. So, the other major thing that we wanted to be able to do is to make it an airplane that is approved for aerobatic load limits with 2 occupants on board, which we never offered before. It was always solo aerobatic capability. So being able to offer that, drove the structure a little bit, drove a little bit of the structural weight. But I think more than that, or paired with that, is that, just starting to get some more accurate weight models out of the structure, and realizing that even if we really hadn't made it aerobatic 2 place, we probably would have been struggling to hit the empty weight that we wanted to hit. So Mosaic's looking like a pretty sure thing at this point. So we decided to sort of, we didn't really change much. Actually, we just reevaluated some of the engineering that we had done on the structures for that 2-place aerobatic capability, and realized that, well, we can, with Mosaic is in place, we have a reciprocal factor, if you will, for a certain weight at aerobatic category versus a weight at utility category. So we had the opportunity to go up to 1,500 pounds. And that allows us to stay, although, we haven't published any sort of updated stall speed estimations or anything yet. We're pretty confident, based on just wing area and wing loading, that we're going to be well within what we need to be to meet the NPRM numbers. So we're not concerned with whether or not those numbers get expanded, which I think is a safe place to be. And we always want those numbers. We want stall speeds to be as low as possible, of course. Anyway, so that's kind of where we're.
But that gives you a little bit of breathing room, because it's probably, I think it's widely expected, the FAA to come back a little bit on the stall speed. but that
Mhm.
gives you that extra breathing room. And I would assume that the engineering you've done, I mean, you say 1,500 pounds, I'm sure you've been able to extrapolate out. It's like, okay, with the horsepower we have, the structure we're looking at,
Right.
all good designers will plan for some future inevitability that, well, maybe there's a growth path for the airplane. And I
For
assume
sure.
you've done that as well.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. So, just trying to take advantage of the opportunity we have in the new rule. If the FAA comes all the way back and they reject all the comments and stick with the stall speed in their NPRM, we'll still be safe. Right now we're building the airplane with 130 horse ULPower, and that's kind of the top end of our power horsepower spectrum that we're planning at this point. But of course, now we have things like the 916 Rotax out there. So, which is an interesting opportunity because we're not looking at a really increased installation weight.
Hmm.
So that may be an opportunity in the future, although, never been our favorite package. We always preferred the direct drive air cooled engines. Uh, that certainly, I think, will be something that some builders will be thinking about if they have the money
Right,
to do it.
right.
Yeah.
It's not an inexpensive engine, and there's a lot of technology that comes with it, but it does definitely comes at a price. And I think it'll be interesting to see when you guys begin kitting this airplane, sort of where the demographic falls. I mean, the Sonex line of aircraft have always been very carefully and I think very successfully aimed at the guys who are very cost conscious. There's a lot of value in the airframe, and there's a lot of value in the power plant options that you provide. I'll be curious to see if this shifts the demographic at all, or if it's going to be, I hate to say a tried and true Sonex customer, but following that same precept. It'd be interesting to see.
Right. Yeah. Um, and that's always been important. Yeah, really important to us. People asked, in some of the early interviews I did on the highway, well, you're going to put a light coaming in this? No, we're not. That's not, you know, not what we're doing. We're sticking with our same sort of grouping of engines that we still, very much believe in, and we feel that they're good options. And so the really important thing is that this airplane still perform well, at around 100 horse or around 120 horse with the Jabber 3300. The UL power engines are a great opportunity for the airplane as well, especially at 130 horse or 118, I think is their next step down. I think those will be good performers. So, we have good wing area. We'll see what it does in flight test. I'm not expecting that it will outperform a Sonex, but my hope is that it'll be right up there with it. And certainly when you fly it solo, it ought to do really well, um, which people are doing 90% of the time anyway.
That's true. It's really all about power to weight at that point. So
Yeah.
you obviously the interior volume will be an important thing. That's why I think a lot of people like in high wings, and they tend to get used in somewhat more utilitarian roles, and that's always important. Um, I forget, and I think you guys have probably announced it, but it's slipped my memory. I know you're going to be offering tricycle gear as well as tail dragger versions of it. Which
Yeah.
do you anticipate that you'll be building first as the prototype?
We're building the tail dragger first. That's what the majority of our customers still buys. And that's where the market inertia really is for us. And the tri gear is a fairly simple changeover. So we're working in a fairly good set of knowns in terms of what the tri gear will be, even though the structure of the fuselage is a little bit different. But we've got that. Well, it's all designed. It's just a matter of time, hours in the day to build two prototypes versus building one first and then the other.
In order to make the changeover, I would assume that the basic fuselage is the same. You'll be just changing some places where it's strengthened or stiffened for one configuration or the other.
Yeah, there really isn't, because we spent a lot of time on the fuselage design structurally, and we, based on what we're what we wanted to do with the size of the door and having good entry into the airplane, we had to be really deliberate about still having a really good box structure to the fuselage, and having it torsionally stiff. So a lot of what we're doing in the seat pan and the area between the seat pan and the aft end of the baggage compartment to really box it out and stiffen it up is all the same stuff we have to do for tri-gear mounts. So there's no structural changes. Basically, it's our same or similar to our same tricycle gear weldments, basically installed under the seat pan the same way. And we won't have any real build changes other than that, and it's a different engine mount, obviously, to either plug the main gear legs in for a tail dragger or to take the nose gear strut for the tri gear. So very, very Sonex in that way.
That's got to be nice from a manufacturing standpoint, where you don't really have to be building different fuselages for different configurations.
Yeah, very much so. We take it's the same way with the spar box and the Sonex. We take the spar box in the area where the tri-gear weldments go, and there's just holes we don't put in that we leave for the builder to put in, depending on what they're doing. And we even made that simpler a couple of years ago, actually, just by putting sort of bolts in as standard, whether you're going to have a tri-gear mount there as well. You have the same bolts in the same locations versus a line of rivets. So we'll be doing a lot of the same stuff there.
You're building up a fuselage now for AirVenture. Be showing that, then you'll come back and go into flight test, obviously. As far as Mosaic is concerned, there's a possibility of series producing some of these airplanes or doing ELSA versions. We can't say LSA anymore. We're going to, Dan Johnson likes to say MLSA, or however we want to call the light sport world as we get into Mosaic. Is
Right.
there any consideration of doing series produced versions of these, or an ELSA version equivalent?
Yeah, that was always factored into the business plan around the design in terms of a design that would enable us to do that. Of course, to begin with, we'll be doing EAB kits, and we have to wait for the new regulations to be finalized, and we have to see what the ASTM committee does with it in terms of all of their specifications and guidance that goes along with that, and review of all of that, of course. So, that probably we're not looking to see until 2025, more than likely. And at that point, we'll see, from the ELSA perspective, what are the packages that we want to offer. Right now we already offer a quick build kit that's like 48% change on the NCAT checklist. So on the FAA audit. So it'll be a question of how much further do we take that, and for what price. That keeps
Right.
it worthwhile, and based on what people want. Yeah, exactly. We're still committed to keeping this airplane relatively as affordable as we can. I mean, I think from a basic kit standpoint, no quick builds or anything. It'll be very competitive with the build cost of the Xenos motor glider. Of course, depending on what you put in it for engine and avionics, which is the big X factor.
Yeah.
But we should be really competitive there.
Uh,
And SLSA, we'll see. Certainly, that's a mixed bag. But it's always kind of this is an opportunity. We could go there with this airplane. And this airplane, just by the nature of the way it's done and what it is, would lend itself pretty well to that. Um, there's a way different customer support paradigm. And I'm sure that's going to be present with ELSA as well, because we're giving something even more complete than we already do. And so we have to be geared to support screwdriver turners instead of rivet pullers, I
Right.
guess, if
Right.
you were, in terms of personality and skill level, and pair up with the appropriate partners in terms of a support network for an SLSA. We'd have to find, we'd probably want to find a few businesses regionally located that can support the product in terms of training and maintenance and maybe even finishing services, depending on how much of the work we want to do here, and ship it. Of course, the airplane's designed with removable wings, so we can ship it at however complete we want, and potentially a finishing business could, a dealer, if you will, could do some of the final tasks on the aircraft.
Absolutely. I realize we skipped completely over the whole performance discussion of the airplane. I know it's been
Yeah.
in your a few of your webinars and things like that, but for the benefit of this audience, just give us the top line view of what you're looking for.
Yeah, like I mentioned before, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not expecting it to outperform the Sonex necessarily. So when I say that, I say, okay, a Sonex with a Jaguar 3300, let's say, will true out at about 170 miles an hour at 8,000 feet. It could definitely go faster if you want to burn more fuel, but just an economy cruise power setting, that's what it'll do. 150 miles an hour at 3,000 feet, let's say. And so I believe, I hope very much that we'll still get there with this airplane and be able to match those numbers with, at least with the 130 horse ULPower that we're putting in this first one. But that's the whole design philosophy of our line, is that we're trying to design airplanes that leverage horsepower very efficiently, so that we can minimize the horsepower output of the package that you need to get really good performance. And that all, of course, ties into cost and fuel economy, how much fuel you have to carry, and how much everything costs. So the goal is still there for this airplane, but at the same time we have the overriding, or I won't say overriding, but the parallel mission of giving the customer a little bit more of what we give them now. So we'll see where that compromise comes out. But I feel pretty good that we'll be in the approximately the same neighborhood. I'll just say that. I'm not willing to quote any numbers until we fly it, but based on wing area and everything, I feel that we'll do well on climb and stall speeds, and we'll see what we can do in cruise. But
That's
the
great.
whole idea of the airplane is not to be a backcountry STOL airplane.
Right.
It's cantilevered wing, no struts. It'll still have wheel pants and gear leg fairings, and and uh, and so we're trying to fill what we perceive as a little bit of a hole in the market in terms of high wings that are not um, filling the trend, let's say, for all of your STOL type performance. We're trying to get back a little bit more towards, what a tailwind would do, what a glass star will do, what a Sonex will do, and be like a Sonex, just with a high wing, essentially, and more utility, more payload.
Goals. So just to wrap up, then bring me up to speed on sort of the time hacks as you go through. Obviously, as we just mentioned, you're intending to show a semi-completed fuselage at AirVenture here, coming right up. It's really steaming right up at us.
Yeah.
But beyond that, what do you feel like your benchmarks are for flight test timing, and then when do you hope to have the kit released?
It won't be done a moment before it's done. I'll use the John Monette quote on that one. I mean, yeah, we'd like to fly it this year before the snow flies, but I you know we'll get as far as we can and we'll get it done. I'd like to be shipping kits next year, and we also have, like I mentioned before, the two-place jet to finish up and get flying this year and get those kits shipping as well. So we're working both projects pretty hard, and it'll be ready when it's ready. That's the best I can offer at this point. But yeah, we don't want it to take forever. We want to get it out there.
Sure. Well, I wish you luck with that. I'm excited to see what you have for the mock-up. I guess it's not the mock-up because you're actually building the real airplane out of this, correct?
Yeah, it'll be the flight vehicle, and we'll see how far we get with particularly the wings. We need the center section wing in there in order for the airplane to be stout enough to take people sitting in it. But we've discussed, okay, worst case scenario, do we put a simulated spar in and brace it up just so people can try it on? And we'll see. I don't think we'll need to do that. Um, we'll see how far we get. And, hopefully we'll have at least one of the outboard wings done so we can tack it on there, and people can kind of get a sense of the scale of it and see. And of course, this will have two different wingtip options. So if you're going to fly it aerobatic with two people on board, you're going to zip out the piano hinge. You're going to put on simple end plates, and that's required for the structure, just to get less moment loading, less moment on the spar. If you're flying it solo or with two people not doing aerobatics, you fly it full span. And if you're doing aerobatics solo, you can fly it full span. But it should be a pretty easy changeover. I think 9 times out of 10, you're going to want it full span from a takeoff and climb performance standpoint. It'll be interesting what it does in the clipped wing version. So that'll be interesting to see how those numbers come out as well.
Great. Well, I think for people watching this who are interested in the airplane, there's no better time than AirVenture to come and chat you guys up about it and see what you got. And I appreciate your time today, and good luck getting this together. And let's hope it's a late first snowfall in Oshkosh this year.
Yeah, no kidding.
For a lot of reasons.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Mike, for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark.
All right.